What if Anakin was granted the rank of Master? Before we begin, a quick shout out to the voice actors, Nick Cortez and the Shapeshifter. Their links will be in the description. Let's start the story during Revenge of the Sith. The end of the Clone War is near, and Palpatine has begun his final manipulation of Anakin Skywalker. He needs the Chosen One by his side to assist him in executing Order 66, and will turn Anakin into an apprentice to become the future of the Sith Order. He appointed Anakin a position on the Jedi Council, knowing the Council would reject this, which would begin to turn Anakin against the Council. But he also knew the Council would think this action was suspicious of Palpatine, and therefore appoint Anakin to spy on the Chancellor, Anakin's friend and mentor, further putting a rift between Anakin and the Jedi. However, Palpatine's plan backfires, and the Jedi Council did something he never expected. Anakin stands in front of the Council, the 11 most powerful Jedi in the Order, as Master Yoda states,
"This decision from the Chancellor, very serious it is, but come to an agreement we have."
Windu follows up,
Anakin Skywalker, we grant you a seat on the Jedi Council, but also the rank of Jedi Master for your efforts in protecting the galaxy in the Clone War, and dedication to defeating the Sith.
Anakin's recent unaliving of Count Dooku had seriously increased his favoritism in the Order, as they all believed this was the final piece in the beginning of the downfall of the Separatists.
Thank you, Master. Take a seat, Master Skywalker.
Anakin smiles at his master as he goes and takes his seat. Anakin was beyond happy. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time, not only because of the high honor it bestowed upon him, but more importantly, now he had access to the restricted section in the Jedi archives. Only a night earlier, he received dreams of Padme dying in childbirth, similar to that of his mother years ago, and was consumed by the fear of her death. But now he had an option to explore. With becoming a Jedi Master, he now had access to the restricted section of the archives, and can seek out the power to save one from certain death. In the original story, Anakin had 0 options, which Palpatine capitalized on, telling him the tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise, and used this to seduce Anakin to his side, with the illusion that he had the power to save Padme. But in this story, Anakin isn't so hopeless. Early into the evening, Anakin travels to the Jedi archives, where for the first time, he scans in and enters the restricted section. At night, the temple showed little life. For once, he was able to walk through the halls freely without being disturbed. He enters the archives, where he makes his way to the secret room at the end, and uses the Force to open the door. The restricted section of the Jedi Temple. This room was even larger than the one he had just left. As Anakin roamed the rows of texts and objects, he read more and more, indulging himself in the Jedi's teachings previously forbidden to him. He learned of old Jedi history, civilizations, and worlds that he had never heard of, but he only skimmed over this reading, as this wasn't the purpose of his visit. He moved over to the Force ability section, where he picks out one scroll labeled Healing. This must be it. He opens the scroll and begins learning about the different types of Force healing, but he's read all of these techniques before, and these are just basic forms of the ability, and won't be powerful enough to save Padme. But when he gets to the end of the scroll, he reads a technique he hasn't heard of before. He reads it out loud. Curatio Divinium, the technique of divine healing. He reads the description of the technique, how it is the strongest form of Force healing available to a Jedi, and has only been used by 3 masters in all of the Jedi's history, and requires the user to be extremely powerful. No Jedi in the last 1000 years has been able to master this technique, not even Yoda. The technique has the power to bring one back from the brink of death through the merging of the living Force. But to do this, the Jedi using the technique must be free from any limitations imposed by the dark side. That the technique can't be clouded by fear, anger, or hate, but rather the energy of the light side, and must be fueled with these emotions of kindness, serenity, and hope. The user must connect to the depths of the Force inside themselves, but also with the person they are healing. The Force is an energy field created by all living things, and the user must combine their Force energy with that of the recipient, and provide a consistent stream of Force energy to facilitate the healing process and the creation of new bone, blood, and tissue. Anakin was extremely happy by this, and could only have gained this knowledge by becoming a Jedi Master. He sleeps late that night, happy and hopeful that he's found a solution. But one person who was not happy was Palpatine. He had miscalculated. He didn't believe there was a chance the Council would give Anakin the rank of Master, but he underestimated them. And now he's given Anakin everything he needs. He must change his plan. During the next day, Anakin decides to practice his new ability firsthand. He travels to the closest Coruscant hospital and moves around the wards, focusing on his balance and serenity as he successfully uses his newly acquired ability of Force Heal to cure some patients of their injuries. Anakin couldn't believe it. It took a bit of time to master the connection required, but the technique worked exactly how it was explained in the scroll. But what he realized was most important in using the technique was that his mind was in balance and not shaken by emotion, that he was calm and channeled the light side of the Force. Any thought of fear shifted him off balance, and the healing slowed, but as soon as balance in his mind was restored, the healing restarted. Because of this, for the rest of the day, Anakin embarks on a deep meditation, focusing on harmony in the light side of the Force, filling himself with hope that Padme will survive, and attempts to rid himself of any fear. Anakin has his meeting with Palpatine later that night at the opera. At this point, Palpatine is the one Anakin trusted the most, more than anyone, as he facilitated in Anakin becoming a Jedi Master and learning the ability to save Padme. He sincerely thanked Palpatine, and in his mind, is thinking that he wouldn't be able to save his wife without him, and tells Palpatine that he's the father he never had. Palpatine puts on an act, and thanks Anakin for his kind words, but deep inside, he's furious. Anakin trusts Palpatine completely, and decides to tell him the situation that's been going on in his personal life, and goes on to tell Palpatine that Padme is indeed his wife, something Palpatine already knew, but was forced to act surprised. Anakin explained further about the nightmares he's been having, and this is why becoming a master was so important to him, so he could learn the power to save her, which he has, and thanks him once again. But Palpatine attempted to instill fear in Anakin, attempting to break the balance and harmony that he's achieved by telling Anakin that he better have a backup plan in case this fails. But this doesn't crack Anakin's resolve, who's faithful to the light side of the Force. He decides to tell Anakin about Darth Plagueis the Wise, the Sith Lord that could save those he cared about from death, which could be another option for Anakin. But as he expected, this had no effect on Anakin, who already has his solution. He tells Anakin about Grievous's location on Utapau, and tries to turn him against the Council by nominating him for this mission, knowing the Council will reject. This is brought up the next day at the Council meeting, Grievous's whereabouts, and that Palpatine wishes for Anakin to go. Yoda tells Skywalker that he believes he is ready and up for the task, but thinks they should send someone with a bit more experience, and they nominate Kenobi. But Yoda has a reason behind this, and said it's because he wanted to speak with Anakin privately, and suspects there's more going on with the Chosen One. He sensed the change inside the boy, previously emotional, reckless, and hot-tempered, now calm, balanced, and has control over his emotions, and Yoda wanted to get to the root of this. He doesn't believe it can be solely due to him becoming a master. Because of this, Yoda wanted to stay on Coruscant, and nominated Windu to go in his stead to Kashyyyk. Yoda and Anakin meet in private after the council meeting, as Yoda applauds Anakin for the serenity and harmony that he senses inside of him, following his appointment onto the council and rank of Jedi Master. He tells Skywalker that with this, he believes he is ready to communicate with his old master Qui-Gon Jinn. Anakin was shocked by this, and asks Yoda how this is possible, who tells him that Qui-Gon had learned the secret to preserve his consciousness in the Force. Together they go into a deep meditation, where Yoda commands Anakin to fill his mind with thoughts of Qui-Gon and the memories of his past, to calm his emotions, and Qui-Gon begins to speak to him.
Anakin, my boy, after all these years.
Master Qui-Gon? Is it really you?
It is, Anakin. We have a lot to discuss. Yoda, may Anakin and I have a chat?
Yoda leaves, and Qui-Gon tells Anakin how proud he is of him, that he really believes he is the Chosen One, but can sense deep down he's in some distress. Anakin tells Qui-Gon about his dreams of Padme's death, but that he's already found a solution deep in the Jedi archives. But Qui-Gon tells him to not blind himself in the Force, that Padme is not completely safe. The Sith Lord is still working behind the scenes, and is eager to get Anakin on his side. Skywalker asks him who the Sith Lord is, but Qui-Gon tells Anakin that he cannot say, that he needs to fulfill his duty on his own. But he implores Anakin to not let his fear take over, that the serenity he's achieved is the only way he'll successfully carry out this task as the Chosen One, and save Padme and the Jedi Order. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Obi-Wan engages Grievous in combat, and Palpatine knows he has little time left before he's forced to step down as Chancellor, and decides to take a gamble on Anakin, otherwise he'll have to completely give up on turning him. Anakin thinks of him as his father, and other than Padme, he is the closest person in his life. Palpatine believes he might still join him if he manipulates him to his side. Anakin is sent to inform Palpatine about Obi-Wan engaging Grievous in combat, and Palpatine starts his manipulation here, telling Anakin that he wishes the Council would send him, but Anakin doesn't actually mind, as him being here on Coruscant meant he could converse with Qui-Gon and be close with Padme. He attempts to instill fear inside of Anakin, telling him that Padme's fate is not set in stone, that the Jedi's healing will not work on her, that only one thing will save her, if he learns to know the dark side of the Force and use this to save Padme from her certain death. This confused Anakin. How could Palpatine know of the dark side? And more so, how could he know that this Force healing technique wouldn't work? Palpatine sensed the confusion and tells Anakin that he knows this because he's the Sith Lord Darth Sidious, has mastered the dark side of the Force, and tells Anakin that the Jedi's healing technique is a lie, that the only way to save Padme is with the dark side. Anakin's mind explodes with this new information as the reality of Palpatine being a Sith Lord hits. Palpatine, the father figure who's always been in his life, was actually a servant of the dark side. But what goes through Anakin's head is what Qui-Gon told him, that the Sith were working behind the scenes, and this is what he must have meant. Palpatine's promises of saving Padme cannot be correct, and he must listen to Qui-Gon and remain in harmony. But he plays this off, telling Palpatine he'll have to think about this, that he has a lot on his mind, and he leaves, but goes straight to Yoda and the other Jedi in the hangar bay. He tells Yoda the truth he's learned, that Palpatine is the Sith Lord. Yoda tells him to wait in the council chambers until they return, but Anakin tells Yoda that he must come to fulfill his destiny in the Force. Yoda pauses and senses the balance in Anakin, and his trust in Skywalker has grown recently, as he's felt the change in him through the Force. Ultimately, he allows Anakin to come, and together the 5 Jedi Masters head towards Palpatine. However, on the way, they feel a disturbance in the Force. Palpatine didn't believe Anakin's acting, and knew there was no chance of the Chosen One joining him. He'd lost his opportunity, and now had to carry out Plan B, Order 66. The Jedi Council ship is heading towards the Senate building to arrest the Chancellor, as they all feel it through the Force. The death of the light side around the galaxy, as Palpatine had spontaneously executed Order 66. They feel the rush of the dark side as their ship is shot down mid-air by the surrounding shuttles, occupied by the Coruscant Guard under the command of Palpatine. Yoda, Anakin, and the other Masters crash at the base of the Senate office. They all survive and go to get up, as Kit Fisto and Agen Kolar are stabbed in the blink of an eye with the crimson red lightsaber. The 3 Jedi go to ignite their lightsabers in response, but before Saisi Tin can do this, he's burned to a crisp as Palpatine cracks him with Force lightning. By this time, Anakin and Yoda have their blades drawn and stand across from Palpatine, who has a devious smirk on his face. Anakin can't believe what he's seeing. Palpatine really is the Sith Lord. The 3 engage in a fierce duel. Yoda uses his size to his advantage, whilst Anakin remains calm in the Force and doesn't let his emotions take over. Palpatine ignites a second blade. He was a master of fighting multiple opponents and defended and attacked in swift motions. He lunged at Anakin, attempting to take him out in a single strike, but Anakin spun and used his wrist to push Palpatine's arm down and then elbowed him across the jaw. This left Palpatine dazed, as Yoda disarmed him by cutting off one of his hands. This enrages the Sith, who goes to cast lightning with the remaining hand, but Yoda jumps in front of Anakin to block, as Skywalker uses the moment to dart from the side and thrust his blade through Palpatine, as a shocked expression takes over his face, as he couldn't believe his defeat, and together Anakin and Yoda have defeated the Sith Lord. They have no time to waste, as they can sense the temple is under siege. They rush there immediately, and aid the Jedi in defending the temple. In the original timeline, Anakin with the clones was too much for the temple to handle, and it was sacked. But in this timeline, with Anakin and the Grandmaster Yoda defending the temple, they would successfully defeat the clones and protect the Jedi inside. Anakin and Yoda meet with Bail Organa at the Senate, with the rest of the Security Council, where they discuss what has happened. A few of the members were furious with them that they killed the Chancellor, but after a review of the footage, which showed Palpatine as a Sith Lord and attacking them, they began to realize that more was going on that they knew. They discussed with them how Palpatine and Dooku had been colluding together to create the Clone War conflict and manipulate galactic events so that the war would create chaos around the galaxy and worsen the picture of the Jedi by the people of the Republic. And this recent event The clones attacking the temple was all part of his plan. Bail argues alongside the Jedi, imploring the rest of the Security Council to see reason that Palpatine had far exceeded his term as Chancellor and his emergency powers were undemocratic. They vote in a majority and decide to execute Order 65, which stops all of Palpatine's orders, including Order 66, and the clones stop hunting the Jedi around the galaxy. Yoda sends out a message to surviving Jedi and orders them to return to Coruscant, that the war is over and they must all return. In the coming weeks, the Jedi Order rebuilt the damages that were inflicted, as Order 66 reduced their numbers by 60%. But they also worked alongside the Republic Security Council to take control of the Senate in this transitory period until the new Chancellor Bail Organa was voted in to succeed Palpatine as Chancellor. During this time, Padme's birth arrived as she went into labor, and Anakin knew the time was upon him. He focused on his serenity and harmony, channeling the light side of the Force through his veins, as he was ready to use the Force to heal Padme if necessary. But her birth was smooth, and Anakin's help wasn't needed, as they welcomed Luke and Leia into the galaxy. Anakin's dreams had deceived him, and this was an important lesson that he had learned. He was now faced with an important decision. He couldn't keep the twins hidden from the council, and knew he would have to reveal the truth. In the next council meeting, Anakin tells them everything, from his marriage to Padme and his children Luke and Leia. Bear in mind, the council was half its size, consisting of Yoda, Anakin, Obi-Wan, Mace Windu, Plo Koon, and Coleman Kaj. Previous council member Oppo Rancisis was reinstated during this time. The council was shocked and didn't expect this news from Anakin, although Obi-Wan secretly knew about Padme, and he wasn't sure how the council would react. He speaks up.
Members of the Jedi Order have had wives in the past. Ki-Adi-Mundi. Revan. Is this so bad? Anakin fulfilled his role as the Chosen One, and none of us will be sitting here without him. We owe this to him.
Murmurs scattered across the council members as they all think about what to do.
I agree with Kenobi. Anakin has proved his attachments did not cause him to lose balance.
Agree with you both, I do. Allow Anakin to stay. In the Order we will. Prove his resilience and commitment to the Jedi. Time and time again has he.
Thank you, Masters. I appreciate you doing this. And may the Force be with you.
Anakin finally had everything he'd ever wanted. His family alive and well, and he was a Jedi Master of the Jedi High Council. Ahsoka would rejoin the Order weeks later, and would eventually be promoted to the rank of Jedi Knight. Hey guys, before I continue, I'd just like to shout out my saber shop, Fantasy Sabers, where we do high quality replica sabers as well as many unique saber designs. There are RGB or NeoPixel sabers available, the best on the market. Make sure to comment on this video your favorite saber to go in the draw to win a replica, the Sun Saber, marking the first month of our release. The sabers we're showing off this month are Dark Wolf, Kingsguard, and Void Blade, our favorites from the Padawan collection. These are all available in NeoPixel options, and make sure to check them out in the description. Now back to the video. But the story doesn't end there. In the years following the death of Darth Sidious, the galaxy enters a new High Republic era. For nearly 1,000 years, the Sith were planting their seeds in every root of corruption inside the galaxy, including the Senate, but now this was no longer the case. This allowed the Republic Senate to actually serve the people of the Republic better, as all corruption was rooted out, and in the years following the war, they did just this. Anakin and Padme's relationship blossomed, as they only grew deeper in love, as they raised their children together. The Jedi Order under the leadership of Yoda rebuilt the temple, and began practicing their ways again. With the news of Anakin, his wife and children spread around the Order, there were whispers of discontent and dissatisfaction. But when they heard about Anakin fulfilling his role as the Chosen One, exposing and defeating the Sith, his reputation was restored. Anakin and his family had a direct impact on the Jedi Order. Many in the Order had begun to question if attachments were really that bad, that if Anakin could get as powerful as he had in the Force with them, then why couldn't anyone else? This modern thinking begins to spread through various members in the Order, and slowly the Jedi's ideology is changing on attachments. When Luke and Leia reach 3 years old, they begin showing signs of their Force sensitivity, and Anakin slowly begins training them himself. The galaxy prospers, free of the Sith, and the Jedi have successfully restored peace to the galaxy. The clones are transformed into the Galactic Police, and the Republic has contracts with Kamino to continue their production. Meanwhile, 10 years after Palpatine's defeat, Anakin's power has skyrocketed. He was the most powerful Jedi in the Order, maybe in history, as his mastery of the Force was unmatched. He masters many techniques, only available to those in the Jedi Archives restricted section. Force projection, battle meditation, Shatterpoint, Force Phantom, Force Bond, Force Vision, advanced telekinesis, and even learn to fly for short periods of time. Anakin's master of lightsaber combat advanced, with no one in the Order being a match for him. But what set Anakin apart during these 10 years was his leadership skills, which only blossomed as a council member and father. One day, Anakin gets contacted by a Senate officer that someone has requested his presence, a new arrival from a system foreign to the Republic. Anakin doesn't know who it could be, but decides to go anyway. He enters the meeting room where the individual who called for him is looking outside the window, but Anakin can straight away see the color of his skin and recognizes the blue-skinned man as the Chiss named Thrawn. They greet each other after they met during the Clone War and exchange pleasantries.
Long time no see, Captain Thrawn. Have the Chiss decided to join the Republic?
Potentially, but this depends on various factors. Anakin, can you tell me the state of the galaxy now?
And Anakin tells Thrawn about the events that happened 10 years ago, how the Chancellor was evil and actually behind both sides of the Clone War, but he defeated him, and ever since, the Republic has flourished. Thrawn was tasked by the 9 Chiss aristocrat leaders to evaluate the strength of the Republic. They did this because the Chiss are under threat of an enemy in the unknown regions, the Grisk, who've been an enemy of the Chiss in the past. But they've been gathering their forces, and the Chiss scouts have detected their armies rising and gearing up for another raid on Chiss space. But there is one problem. The Chiss have a non-aggression pact where they cannot attack an enemy unless they've entered Chiss space. But the Grisk have begun seizing worlds directly outside of Chiss territory, and in a matter of years, the Grisk will have the Chiss territory completely surrounded, to a point where their defeat is assured. Thrawn tells Anakin this, and asks him whether he thinks the Republic could help in this. Anakin thinks about it. The unknown regions have always been a mystery to the Jedi, but now could be the opportunity for the Senate and the Jedi to facilitate their exploration of the area. Plus he knows Thrawn is a good person, and wants to help out his old friend. Anakin sets up another meeting later that day, where Padme is included, and they discuss the idea of the Chiss joining the Republic further. Padme reassures Thrawn that if the Chiss join the Republic, if their territory is attacked by the Grisk, the Republic will come to their aid. This is exactly what Thrawn wanted to hear. Normally the Chiss people like to keep to themselves, but they know they need allies in the coming war, and Thrawn tells Anakin and Padme that he'll take his proposition to the Chiss aristocrat leaders. Padme was part of the Security Council, and had the authority to bridge new worlds into the Republic. Thrawn travels back to Silla, the capital of Chiss space, where the Chiss aristocrat are located. He tells them what he's learned of the Republic, their history in the last 10 years, as well as the might of the Jedi Order, but also the clone military, whose power far exceeds their own.
Here is my recommendation. The best way to defend ourselves from the Grisk is to join the Republic, gain their support, and once the Grisk invade, due to their legislation, the Republic must aid us in our defense.
He goes on to further discuss the intricacies of Republic law and their obligations under trade agreements, but it's futile and has no real consequence on the Chiss people. Saganu IV, one of the aristocrat leaders, stands.
Very well, Thrawn. We accept your proposal. I will come with you to the Republic myself.
Together they travel to the Republic, where they meet with Chancellor Mothma and other senators directly, where they discuss the terms of them joining the Republic. The treaties are signed, and the Chiss are now members of the Republic. The aristocrat appoint Thrawn as their senator, and he begins his role in the decision-making of the Republic. He analyzes the system carefully, and believes it's fairly robust, but obviously has its loopholes, those which Chancellor Palpatine almost exploited.
I cannot believe everyone in this chamber makes decisions for the trillions and trillions of people around the galaxy. It seems so inefficient, open to corruption and easily exploitable. But nevertheless, this political system has stood for 1,000 years, and the Chancellor of the Republic is the most powerful person in the galaxy, yet anyone can be appointed. This is a position I could see myself in.
Around this time, Luke and Leia finish their time as younglings and are chosen to become Padawans of Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, and their true journey in the Force begins. This lasted 6 years, shorter than that of a usual Jedi, but their power was different and their strength grew significantly. They eased into their own styles, Luke favouring lightsaber combat and brute force strength, whereas Leia preferred the delicacies of the Force, preferring niche techniques and subtle manipulations to her liking. She wielded a blue Force whip and only used it when necessary. The day came when they had their Padawan braids chopped off and gained the rank of Jedi Knight. During this time, the Chiss continued to prepare for the Grisk invasion. They were preparing for longer than expected, which had the Chiss frightened, but they knew they had the backup of the Republic. Thrawn increased his political status during this time, attempting to pass many bills and laws that he thought would be beneficial to the Republic. He was very good with people, and used this to climb the ranks in the Senate. However, the dreaded day came when Thrawn received the news from Saganu that the Grisk had invaded Bogo Rai, the outmost planet in Chiss space. Thrawn had his speech prepared and released his cart at the next Senate meeting.
Republic Senate, it is with great regret that I inform you of this news. My people, the Chiss, have just been attacked. Bogo Rai, the outermost planet in our system, destroyed by an evil race of warmongers, the Grisk. Sadly, my people don't have the resources to defend themselves from such monsters. So it's here that I request aid from the Republic.
Murmurs of agreement scatter across the Senate, and Chancellor Mothma stands and proclaims that the Chiss will receive aid in the form of 2 clone squadrons, as well as Jedi to assist them. But if this is not enough, they will send more.
Thank you, Chancellor. Your support is greatly appreciated.
Anakin meets with Thrawn and tells him his own personal squadron will join him on the mission. But that's not all. Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, alongside the new Jedi Knights, Luke and Leia Skywalker, will also assist them in their fight. Thrawn was happy and knew with Anakin on his side, the Chiss could not lose. Commander Jixtus, the leader of the Grisk, decimated Bogo Rai as he commands his forces to begin advancing all around Chiss space. He's dreamed of this moment, and he knows the Chiss don't have the forces to defend their territory from all sides, and they outnumber them 2 to 1. They spent years improving their technology, stealing slaves from other races, and ultimately raising their war ability, as they squeezed the gap around the ascendancy space. The Chiss released their expansive defense fleet against the Grisk, and hold them in space as they attempt to stop any more loss of Chiss life. Jixtus's fleet destroyed Kinnos as they advanced towards Ui. This was going better than Jixtus expected, and he's getting reports of Chiss defeat from all areas of their space. He successfully advances past Ui, and there are only 2 planets in his way before the capital Silla. He can almost taste victory as he sends the command to the rest of his forces to convene on his location so they can initiate a final assault towards the capital and defeat the Chiss once and for all. But this was all a part of Thrawn's plan, to weaken the line directly towards the capital Silla, so Jixtus would group up his forces. Shortly after this, the Republic came out of hyperspace to the side of Jixtus's forces and began firing upon them with no mercy. Jixtus loses 15% of his fleet instantly before he's able to adjust. He was completely taken aback as he didn't recognize these as ascendancy forces and realized the Chiss must have made other allies in secret. He turns his fleet towards the Republic's and advances, but as soon as he does this, the Chiss expansatory fleet comes out of hyperspace and advance from either side. Jixtus was sandwiched and with no way of escape. Entering hyperspace was a suicide mission, and he had to hope his forces had the power to win. But he didn't stand a chance, as soon as Anakin with Luke and Leia by his side, and Thrawn led a siege on his command ship. They dispersed and took over the ship, as Anakin and Thrawn led them to the command center, where they met Jixtus and his top soldiers. Anakin ignited his blade, and Jixtus instantly recognized the blue lightsaber of a Jedi. Jixtus was ignorant and never believed the Chiss would join the Republic, as he knew they favored their autonomy. But he was mistaken. Anakin advanced forward, blocking blaster bullets with his bare hands as he dodged and cut down the enemy effortlessly. Jixtus drew his Cortosis sword and engaged the Chosen One. Their duel was short-lived, and Anakin disarmed him and sliced across his abdomen, causing him to fall to the ground. He writhes in pain, and Thrawn walks up next to him.
Any last words, Grisk?
But Jixtus begins to laugh.
My defeat does not matter.
and this war means nothing. You don't know. None of you do. You haven't seen what I've seen in the depth of the unknown regions. They're coming. An enemy worse than ever seen before. In time, no one will remain when the Yuzhong Vong arrives in full force.
Thrawn ends his tirade by shooting Jixus in the chest, and he and Anakin look at each other in confusion.
The Yuzhong Vong. Have you heard of them, Thrawn?
I haven't, but I don't think Jixtus would lie about such a thing, which only makes me fear the worst. We will deal with this later.
The Republic forces, alongside the Ascendancy, clean up the rest of the Grisk, and they're defeated once and for all. In a couple of days, Thrawn releases his report to the Senate of their victory, and once again thanks them for their assistance. But he also discusses the threat that the Grisk commander brought up, the Yuzhong Vong, and asks anyone in the Senate if they'd heard anything about them. Thrawn did some research of his own, but never read anything about them anywhere. No one in the Senate speaks up, which makes Thrawn feel even more worried. He doesn't feel as if Jixus was lying, and he saw firsthand how terrified he sounded when talking about the Vong. He thought he knew everything about the depth of the unknown regions, but maybe he's only scratched the surface. He decides to forget about this for now. He's brought up his concerns with the Republic Senate, as well as the Chiss aristocrat, who will both monitor the situation. Meanwhile, Anakin details to the Jedi Council what he'd heard of the Yuzhong Vong, asking for any input from anyone. But none of the council recognize the name. But Anakin feels something wrong in the Force, that the Vong will pose a great threat. Anakin undergoes a deep meditation that day. In the last 16 years, Anakin has focused on strengthening his ability foresight to peer into the future, and can now use it at will, however, for only short periods of time. He meditates on the Vong, focusing his thoughts on the name, and the Force begins to provide him with the images he desires. He sees ancient alien species with a humongous army, decimating planets and armies at will. Anakin's shocked out of his vision. The Yuzhong Vong might be the greatest threat the galaxy has ever seen. Anakin brings this up with the Council, who by now know to listen to Anakin's Force visions. He's the chosen one, and his power far exceeds anyone on the Council. Anakin discusses with Mon Mothma the threat of the Vong, and together they convince the Security Council to ramp up the clone army production in time for the Vong attack. 4 years go by, and the galaxy was quiet during this time. Peace and order remained, and the Republic flourished. Mon Mothma's 8 years as Chancellor had just concluded, and her successor was none other than Padme Amidala of Naboo. During this time, Luke and Leia passed their Jedi trials to become Knights of the Order, but one day, Anakin fell to his knees as he felt a disturbance through the Force, and he knew at that moment the Yuzhong Vong had arrived in their galaxy. They arrived out of hyperspace, from a distant galaxy into the unknown regions, and they had been studying the Republic for years. They were specialized in organic-based warfare, often altering their own bodies for armor and defense. They were a race of warriors, born and bred to battle, but also immune to the Force. Rumors of their invasion into the unknown regions spread, but Anakin knew something was up. The following day, Thrawn received a report from the Chiss that the Vong had invaded their territory and had engaged them in battle. They described how the Vong were taking over their worlds, ridding them of any mechanical creations, and would essentially terraform them back to how they originally were. Saganu of the Chiss aristocrat executed the Chiss's red alert, which called for the evacuation of every Chiss individual from their territory as they headed towards the Republic space. A thorough report was given to the Senate and Jedi Council, who prepared for war. The Vong continued their march, conquering the unknown regions, as they killed millions on their rampage, and Anakin knew he had to lead the Jedi and clone army to victory. When Anakin and his children first faced off against the Vong, Anakin realized what made them so special. They were undetectable by the Force and could not be sensed. However, they were still privy to Force-based attacks. The Republic forces engaged the Yuzhong Vong many times in space, with both sides suffering severe casualties. The organic nature of the Vong's fleet caught the Republic off guard, but with the help of Thrawn and the Jedi Council, the Republic quickly adapted. The average Jedi was superior to the average Yuzhong Vong. However, the inability to sense the Vong's movements and attacks in battle severely hindered the Jedi in battle, resulting in more casualties than expected. However, the Jedi remained strong, and they were pivotal in the fight against the Vong. Luke and Leia led their own separate forces, honing their skills in battle, as well as their leadership. However, the Vong counterattacked, unleashing a new biological weapon, the Voxen, which were designed to hunt and kill Force sensitives. They could sense Force sensitives through the Force, and had a variety of deadly abilities and tools at their disposal. The war goes on for weeks, and both sides see huge casualties. Thrawn was tasked with leading the strategy of the clone army, and met with the Jedi Council often. But they all conclude that the toll the war is having on the galaxy is too great, that they must defeat the Vong soon. Too many worlds have already been taken over, and terraformed back to how they originally were. Thrawn was surprised by the Vong. They continued adapting to their strategies, so concluded that a decisive victory in battle was necessary. He discussed this with Anakin, who came up with a plan. The Vong have taken over the planet Sullust to rename it Yuzang Tar, and use this as their base of operations. Sullust is close to a neutron star, and this is part of Anakin's plan. Together, Thrawn and Anakin plan a surprise attack, where Anakin's power is essential. They gather their fleet, with hundreds of Jedi commanding various ships, and their coordinates are plotted for Yuzang Tar. But first, Anakin must make his sneak attack. He sits in a room of his Star Destroyer, with the entire Jedi Council and his children around them. He commands them all to focus their Force energy into him, to let it flow and give their power into him. Anakin knows he has the strength to destroy a planet if necessary, but now he wants to take it one step further. He wants to cause the neutron star next to Yuzang Tar to go supernova and essentially explode. But he can't do it with his base level of power and needs the rest of the council. And together they start a ritual. Every member of the council and Luke and Leia focus their energy on Anakin, while the only thing that occupies his mind is the supernova. He can feel his connection to it growing as he manipulates the particles deep within. They are vibrating at a specific frequency, but Anakin ups the speed, causing the particles to gain more energy and collide. The commander of the Yuzong Vong, Omni, gets reports of an increase in the energy level of the adjacent star next to them. He turns out of his window to see the color of the star change from a light yellow to a blank white, and commands all of his forces to evacuate immediately, but it's too late. Anakin sends a final burst of Force energy into the star, and it goes supernova, completely explodes and sends its energy across space, cracking Yuzong Tar in two and decimating the Vong fleet. Thrawn commands their forces to enter hyperspace now, and they exit to see the destruction they've caused. He commands them to attack, as the Republic fires upon the few survivors of the explosion, and this is no doubt the conclusion of the war with the Vong's complete destruction. Meanwhile, the Jedi Council stop flowing their energy into Anakin, as he collapses unconscious, overcome with the power he had in his hands. The power would drive a normal Jedi crazy, but Anakin was the chosen one, and didn't abide by such limitations. Celebrations occurred all around the galaxy, as news of the Yuzong Vong's defeat spread around the galaxy. The Chiss people returned to their territory, although they had a lot of work in rebuilding it. Anakin was once again praised in his role in saving the galaxy, and he truly was the chosen one. But all he cared about was that he could return to his home to look upon his beautiful wife and powerful kids, and know they were safe and happy. After the defeat of the Grisk and Yuzong Vong, the galaxy would enter a new era of peace and prosperity, led by Anakin Skywalker and his family, who was one day destined for the position of Jedi Grand Master. Ignite your imagination with fantasy sabers. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out What If Anakin Became a Grey Jedi and What If Anakin Was Reborn with all of his memories. This was a longer video than normal, so I'd appreciate if you could leave a like. Check out the voice actors in the description, and don't forget to check out Fantasy Sabers, your one-stop shop for the best sabers on the market. And may the Force be with you.